Welcome to the first episode of season 2 of our CSA Fireside. We have been going around the Commonwealth, sitting virtually with student leaders from all regions of the Commonwealth so far. And today we are in the Pearl of Africa, Uganda. And I am joined by 3 very powerful young leaders. I will allow them to introduce themselves, starting with the CSA Uganda representative. Go ahead, Julia.
Thank you, Benjamin. My name is Julia Mhumuza. I'm happy to be hosted. I'm currently the Uganda representative to the African Regional Committee of the Commonwealth Students Association, like mentioned. I'm also a member of the SDG4 Youth UNESCO. I've served before in capacities of Vice President of the Uganda National Students Association, amongst very many other things, but dear to my heart are such topics, child marriages and teenage pregnancies, due to my active engagement in student leadership. Yeah, thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Mutesi, who I had the privilege of meeting in person a few months ago.
Hi, Benjamin. It's a pleasure to be here. My name is Mutesi Hadija. I'm the Vice President, Uganda National Students Association, and currently a member of the high-level steering group of Education Cannot Wait. I'm passionate about the topic today that we are going to discuss. I've been doing so much around that very area. Yeah, pleasure to be here. Thank you so much.
Yes, and I recall that the morning we had breakfast together, you shared with me, you gave me the real scoop. And I hope that in this conversation, though it's public and not just a private conversation, you will, help persons in and outside of your country to grasp how serious this issue is. And last but certainly not least, my dear colleague, Angela, who is the executive producer of the CSA Fireside, who has been working very hard to ensure that we remain afloat with this program. Please, Angela, introduce yourself.
So hi, Benjamin. Hi, Julia, and hi, Hadija. I'm Angela Nachiganda. I'm a medical doctor here in Uganda, and I'm very passionate about the Sustainable Development Goals. So in it being that I was ready to volunteer in anything that presented itself to me to implement them. So I was given the chance to be the secretary of the CSA Chairperson's Task Force, which has been a very good space for me to serve SDG4. Also a volunteers coordinator for Ananda Center of Cancer Research, because we have a burden of people suffering cancer. We give them a space to share their stories, to tell us what is going on, we find ways to help them, and also get into research and have a chance to, be with them, just encourage them through the process. It's a disturbing thing. The main thing
All right, it seems Angela's connection is okay. She's back.
I like volunteering.
All right, thank you, Angela. So today we're discussing barriers to education, child marriage, and teenage pregnancy in Uganda. And I'm going to ask Julia to give us a background on this very important topic. Go ahead, Julia.
Thank you, Benjamin, for this space to discuss such a very pertinent issue. Now, child marriage, definitely from child, we know that it's formal or informal marriage that is happening with at least one of the parties being below age of 18 is the legal age in Uganda for context. And definitely, like Khadija or Angela will discuss further about teenage pregnancy, this became a bigger issue with COVID-19, child marriage, or just teenage pregnancy itself. So, and this, like I mentioned, either party, but it's highly bent on the side of the girls, mainly in rural areas, due to cultural norms, due to education and poverty, and very many contributing factors that I will show us. So in Uganda, we have I wouldn't rule out the urban areas, but because of the increased access to education, the sensitization, the campaigns, a lot of knowledge is distributed in usually the urban areas. But when you get to the rural areas, it's a different case. Earlier this year, I co-founded an organization that is called Children's Education and Development Initiative that mainly aids children in rural areas to access quality and affordable education. And this is when I was exposed to the fact that in rural areas, well, we have different parties, stakeholders play a part, we have different organizations and the government itself putting efforts to work against child marriages. But when you get to the villages, when you get to the rural areas, it is still deeply rooted, given the fact that, like I mentioned earlier, in certain areas, like we do not have schools in certain areas. So that kind of life is wake up from parents to children, wake up, go to the farms, do whatever you're doing, get home. So in such areas, we have gender roles still deeply rooted, where a girl is only looked at as in form of raising, can you do the domestic work? And as long as you can do that, then you can be a mother, you can be a wife. Yes. And then, like I mentioned, because we are suffering from the fact that in rural areas, we have parents of these young girls not also being educated, or they do not see the value of education. Usually, they also tend to end up forcing their children to get married early and have children, and the cycle repeats. So it is a sad reality that is still happening, regardless of the very many efforts we see. As reading earlier a report by UNICEF that was mentioning over 40% of girls are married off by age of 18, yeah, and then over 10% married off below by age 15. But like my colleagues will discuss, you realize that COVID actually increased the numbers, because, you know, in teenage pregnancies, what culture means you get pregnant, definitely you have, regardless of whether you were raped or whatever circumstance was, your parents or guardians will end up pushing you to get married to that kind of a person. And then, like I mentioned, economic distress, the poverty. You know, in Uganda, we have, I don't know if it's elsewhere, we have what you call bride price. So the man marrying off the girl usually pays, could be in terms of money or cattle, whatever it is. So some parents just look at girls, their girls, as maybe a source of income. I should say that in case a man is coming to marry you off, they'll get money out of it, or just to send you off, someone takes care of you, so you reduce the financial burden at home. Very many factors, but for me, largely it's definitely on education, because I believe when we educate communities, when we sensitize, this is one of the ways we shall be reducing on the child marriages. Yeah, but then to conclude the legal framework, definitely, of course, we have laws just like any countries against child marriage. Why is it still a case? I think is a conversation we are going to engage in deeply a bit later. But definitely because of the traditional norms that usually sometimes conflict with the the law framework. And, you know, in villages, in rural areas, most of them actually listen to their traditional leaders or obey their norms as opposed to what is believed elsewhere. I beg to submit.
Is this cultural, or does religion have anything to do with it? Help me understand.
I would say from that, definitely religion has a role to play, because when you're looking at religion, we just do not look at just Christianity or Islam, but also the African traditional religion. Yes, so definitely religion has a role. It is playing in this, but usually on the side of Christianity and Islam, it's much more bent against child marriages. But on the side of our African traditional religion, because in our African traditional religion, we still have initiation ceremonies where children, those kind of functions where children are being initiated into adulthood, they don't happen at 18. So sometimes they also show off as you're ready, yet you're actually not yet an adult. There are different practices that we do in our own African religion that are misinterpreted, that usually sometimes end up extending or increasing the cases of child marriages. I think we lost chair, so I do not know if Hadija or Angela could say something about teenage pregnancies, or we wait for him because we are live.
I think I can say something. The good thing it's recording. What Julia said, we need more sensitization when it comes to teenage pregnancy. Me too, I was surprised because as my uncertain tenure is ending this December, I came up with a project called Inspire Uganda, where I literally moved in all the regions of the country, northeast, west, and central, to sensitize these young girls. But reaching in these schools, it was a surprise. Like, these girls are not informed on anything. They are not informed. I believe that however much different stakeholders are playing their part in regards to teenage pregnancy, I think we are not doing enough. We are not doing enough. And most of these girls are falling victims because of lack of information and awareness. The little awareness that I created to these girls, they got inspired. I got inspired too. I felt like I need to do more. I felt like there is no one else there for them. Yeah. Most of these programs, what I've realized, actually they end up going in better schools sometimes. Sometimes they a lot of interests are involved. For example, if an NGO wants to reach out to girls, people who may be politicians who want to be seen are the one who they'll call them to their districts. It's maybe their districts are kind of well off. Yeah, so adding on Julia's point, that is, I think, a point to note.
Maybe to supplement what Hadija said about teenage pregnancies, I remember there's a time in our ONSA tenure we did a project that was targeting the girls in the islands, more like sensitization. It was in line with definitely teenage pregnancies. And just like Hadija said, you get shocked when you reach there and you realize that there is no information. Like, there are very many myths. I remember they shared with us a story of how in the islands, the fishermen believe that if you sleep with a virgin, you end up getting more fish, collecting more fish. So young girls fall victims to such wrong things that are being said in community. Yeah. So I really support what Hadija has mentioned with sensitization in communities, debunking these myths and just creating more awareness about even the laws themselves. We have them in place, but even parents that wouldn't want their children to be legally, forcefully married off sometimes have no say because they do not know that there is a law that protects them, and this is how you can take advantage of it. Yeah. Welcome back, Chair.
Thank you very much for continuing the conversation. I am having some connectivity issues. So, Angela, tell us about the issue of teenage pregnancy and how the pandemic has exacerbated that issue.
So I'll be back, Benjamin. About teenage pregnancies, the pandemic really did us bad. It started with a shock, first of all. Most of our girls were made to go back home to stay with their parents, and schools were closed for over a full year. So it predisposed them to be at home, go through the cycle Julia has talked about, just going to the garden, doing what you have to do, then going back home. And when the schools were not opened in the first 5 months, yes, they reached a point where they had to, some of them were subjected to marriage because the parents needed bride price, that is money, to buy food. There was a shortage of food as well in that pandemic. And then when girls are married off, most of them are put into a space of pressure, like you have to have a child to show that you're fertile enough. So they ended up becoming pregnant. And when you check the Uganda Bureau of Statistics in 2018, it showed that we had over 256 teenage pregnancies recorded. But in the pandemic, we found that the teenage pregnancies rose up to 1,025, and only those per day. And these are the only ones that were recorded in the antenatal care visits. So teenage pregnancy, the teenagers I've interacted with as a medical doctor have, they come in and they are between the ages of 14 to 19. Most of them do not know what they're doing, honestly. They do not understand the impacts of pregnancy on themselves. They did not choose to get married, by the way. It's either the parents, reasoning they are here because they were wooed by someone who tried to sponsor them into school, and now they're out. And they're into it. So I believe that the teenage pregnancy burden is still big, and our girls do not know. They do not know better. And they're ending up in this state. They're not supported. And I believe in as much as we create sensitization, our families should go back. Our mothers and fathers should go back to the baseline to empower their girls. Yes, to help them understand that they deserve better. I would love to see that. So when other organizations like the NGOs come in, they're just building on what the girl knows from home. And I think that's my submission on teenage pregnancies. Yes.
Does the issue of child marriage and teenage pregnancy involve violence against women and girls? Are they being subjected to force? And this is for anyone. And how is the government responding to protect these girls?
So most of them, yes, are subjected to gender-based violence, honestly. And those will only present to you when it's an abortion that is coming up. So it's only you to probe so much because they tend to hide everything from you. And then you tell them, I'm your doctor, I'm requesting you, please, just tell me, I'm going to keep it a secret. In most cases, their spouses are way older than them, the age gap is not good enough. So you find that you have to probe. After probing, they tell you that this is what happened. And then it's only us who take the initiative to call in organizations that help them. But in most cases, they're not available. The government, yes, is putting up the laws, but when I heard a story from a girl who told me that in as much as we report to the police, the spouse will come in and then bribe it. And, the whole process won't help her. So as a medical worker, you try to involve the social worker, you encourage them, you talk to them, you tell them this is, mindset change. So by the time they go home, they believe they can do better for themselves. But the government is doing its work. It's putting up the laws, but implementation is also hard in the society we live in. Yes, that's my submission.
Thank you. Starting with Motesi, as young women who would have been brought up in Uganda, how do you feel as young women who maybe you saw it happening in your community? I don't know what your personal experience was. Give me your experience growing up in this reality of child marriage and now heightened teenage pregnancy. Mutesi.
Thank you, Benjamin. As a young girl growing up in Uganda, it's not easy, especially when you're coming from the rural area. Most of the girls, we are not informed. We are not inspired by anyone. We actually don't know the consequences of, conceiving at an early age of 14, 15. Many of girls that I grew up with, if I'm to count how many at university with me, I think out of 100, I think I can say 2% at my level, at the university level. Most of my age mates are having like 4 kids, 5 kids. They are being subjected to domestic violence because in Africa, once you marry, as Angela said, most times they marry to their spouses are older than them. So even if you're pregnant and your pregnancy is at 9 months, let me tell you, you will do all the hard work at home because you're a woman. You have no say. I initiated a project, Inspire Uganda, in my capacity as the Vice President, Uganda National Students Association. I moved in these districts and I wanted these students to be inspired. And I discovered these students are not informed. And most of them fall victims because of lack of information and awareness. So I told these students, they would get inspired from their fellow students. So I told them to prepare kits and also poems. But you'll be shocked what these students were performing in their kits. All we are saying here, they all know how they get pregnant, the consequences, they know everything. But what they are lacking is someone to inspire them that actually education is the only way they can achieve their dreams. I was so inspired and I feel like I want to do more. If all goes well, it will turn into an organization where I will sacrifice myself to move district per district, rural areas, so that these girls are inspired. Most of them are calling me every day, wanting advice. What I did, I moved with police, so police could give them the protection mechanism, how they can protect, giving them toll-free numbers. Some of them weren't aware of this information. What she knows is her parents and maybe the man who is going to marry her. That's all. There is nothing much that she knows. Yeah.
Mutesi, given that this is something so entrenched, do you have concerns for the safety of persons advocating against it? I mean, this is heavily patriarchal, and men sometimes get violent when they see someone, especially a woman, trying to change certain values. Are you concerned about the safety of advocates like yourself?
It's a bit hard, especially in some societies. For example, in Uganda, there are some societies where they will say it's normal. Like, why are you trying to change what has existed for over 1,000 years? Like, who are you calling yourself? But let me tell you, when I was growing up, I went to one of the school in rural areas, and I witnessed how most girls couldn't even leave school. Like from term 1 up to like 5 years, when she's at school, she doesn't break off for holidays. Then you ask her, why aren't you going home? And she'd be like, the school is my only safe place. My parents already ate dowry. The moment I go back home, I'm going to be forcibly married off. So I want to be a doctor, and education, I believe, is the only way for me to reach there. I got traumatized. I was like, how can I even be excited, like, to go back home, knowing that I've left a sister at school who has never seen home, like, for the past 2 years. From that day, like, I made a promise to myself, and however much I get these setbacks from societies, I keep pushing, because I made a promise to myself as my slogan for my project goes. Yeah, thanks.
You spoke very highly of your own dad in how he protected you from being affected by this. Would you like to share with us about that?
Oh, Benjamin, I didn't know that you still recall that.
Of course.
Yeah. When I was growing up, our genes, sometimes you can become tall, yet you're still young. So, and being a Muslim, Hajis always like those young women. Yeah? When I was in my primary 7, you can imagine, but men could come at my daddy's place asking him to marry me off, offering all kinds of gifts and all that, cars, money, and all that. But my dad is someone who believes in education. One day, even one rich tycoon came at home, like, to take me. They took my dad to a mosque, and they spent there like 40 minutes. I was like, today I'm finished. So what I did, I had to call my aunt in the village. I was like, I think my dad might marry me off, so send me transport. The moment he comes back and saying there otherwise, I'll have to board and come to the village, because I can't stand. But I was lucky that my dad is someone who loved me so much, because his only daughter, and he believes in education. Education has transformed our home. I can't say that you are from a rich background, but through education, I've reached where I never expected to reach. So the fact that I experienced that very thing, I think it was for a reason for me to also defend and inspire young girls who might fall victims. To cut the story short, my dad came and was too bitter about those men who were offering him gifts, and like, how can they even think of that? How can they, like, my little young girl, give him? We might not be rich, but I'm not desperate. I believe if you're educated, tomorrow you'll be the person who will transform our family, and I'm working towards that. And I can say right now, my dad does not regret the decision he made. Every day I work to make him proud. Yeah, thanks.
Let me publicly lift my hat, my imaginary hat, to your father and all men who share his belief and conviction that they should protect their daughters. I believe, not that I'm trying to diagnose this situation, but the change will need men who understand the importance of protecting their daughters. Yes, women, of course, in advocating as you do, but if men are convinced, men who are often the ones who drive and continue this bad practice, if they are sold over.
Benjamin, sorry to interject, but I think the root cause of teenage pregnancy in Uganda, it's all about focusing on one gender. Yet these things of teenage pregnancy involves the two sexes. You can't sensitize girls and you don't sensitize boys. Indeed. That's why in this project, I would involve both boys and girls, show them. Actually, I was giving balls to boys. I'd be like, instead of, disturbing our girls, please make yourself busy by, doing a certain activity, doing this. Like, they are also not aware of, of the consequences of them, impregnating our girls at a very young age. So I believe if we involve both boys and girls into creating awareness and, transferring information, both should be considered, because getting pregnant involves sexual intercourse, which is a man and a woman.
Well said. Well said. Julia, what about your experience as a Ugandan young woman growing up?
Thank you. Actually, Hadija sharing her story resonates with not me, but my mother. And later I'm going to share how she has been so fundamental in making sure I have we are three girls, making sure that all her three girls are educated and not victims of child marriages. So for her, definitely, I think she comes from that same culture Hadija comes from, where I don't know how they call it in English, but sometimes if your parents accept, you can just come back home on a random afternoon and there is this old man that has come, paid off whatever gifts, and you just have to go with them. Yeah. So for her being in position to escape, know how bad it affected her friends, and try to flee from one area to another just to make it. I think it's from that background that since we were little, she always sensitized us around teenage pregnancies, around how education can really help us. But like Hadija mentioned, not every child gets a chance to be with supportive parents, one, or parents who understand that you need to empower your girls, or you need to empower your boys to either transform the country or do something meaningful. Yeah. So not everyone, even sometimes, however educated some people can be. I remember having a friend, was it senior 4, who was married off when we were senior 4 by parents who were educated, and they were sending her off forcefully to one old man. Yeah, definitely. You as friends, you could try report to a police, but as long as parents are willing, sometimes it's beyond what you could do as people. So for me, I think in my journey, what has been so instrumental are the supportive parents that understand the value of education and also understand how bad child marriage is, or teenage pregnancy, that they have really overemphasized debunking of myths and what really should be helpful to me. But I've also grown up in a church community, which has also, church brings together very many people. You get to know very many people. You get to be with very many fellow young people. So growing up in that community has also exposed me to fellow age mates that were married off, and it would be so sad that you would be so young, you are having big dreams of maybe growing up to be a lawyer, whatever, and then tomorrow you wake up to see this person married off. They're telling you bye, they're taking them back to the village. And so it is really a sad reality, especially in actually not just Uganda, but all countries in the global south, because I don't know how I can justify it, but it happens. It happens. And coming this far, finishing my first degree is something I don't take for granted. Just like Hadija said, we make it this far, and I think that is the firm ground and foundation on which we stand to make sure that other people actually also either stay in school and are protected against this vice.
Thank you, Julia. Angela? Dr. Angela?
So for my experience, I want to believe that Julia and Hadija have summarized it, that having a supportive family is something that has brought us this far. I would love to share my story. It's not so big, but I come from a family whereby our parents didn't know better. I believe they didn't know better, but had us earlier. So it's them choosing. I think it's the mindset change that happened, and they chose to be there in every step, in every way. They supported us from childhood. And the biggest thing was that when you have a father figure that tells you every day you should be content with what I give you, I'll give you everything that you need. It may not be now, but it will be there. It I don't know, it gives you a big deal of contentment that I'll do it. And them being present has been a big deal for me, because medical school was quite hard, but them telling me, Angela, you can do it, it gave me the zeal to push more, to do better, to become a better girl, to even choose better for myself as we went on. So I believe family is a big deal. Please. That's why I was requesting that if we are to address this teenage pregnancy thing, we need to go back to the basics. Like, we go back to the basics of family. Let the father and mother be there in every step. Let them defend their child. Let them show them that this is better. This is what I want for you. And as you go on, we should have roundtable talks. Like, let our families be more of, we are talking like friends. Like, let your parents be your friends. I don't know, parents in our African setting are not so much our friends. They tend to tell you, this is what I want you to do, whether you're an adult or not. But I think if we made our children our friends and our parents our friends, we would be able to address this whole, sexual and reproductive health. We could be able to, yes, that is my submission. But our parents are big. Yes.
Yes. So we're coming down to it. I gather from the three of you that education, family values are important in the fight against teenage pregnancy and child marriage. But is there anything else, any other policy change, any aspect of legislation, any other cultural factor that any of you would like to mention or suggest as being part of the solution to this issue?
I have one. So I think in our curriculum, I think should come back to our school curriculum, should come back to adding sexual and reproductive health, which is accurate and in line with the age of the children. From the age of 10, let's tell them about sexual and reproductive health. Let us give them a space where they are free to share what they're experiencing. If we have counselors, let them go down to understand the children at that age. In as much as we put it there, but our curriculum does not have sexual and reproductive health. So I think if we had put it in there from the age of 10, a girl knows that when puberty is hitting, this is what is going to happen. They would not be so confused about the whole thing and trying to navigate it alone. So I think we would be there and, encourage them. Yeah.
Thank you. Mutesi?
Thank you, Benjamin. For me, what I think is schools need to educate these students about teenage pregnancy. And also some of our policies. Now, if a student is pregnant, you're allowed to sit for your exams and, complete them. You're not allowed to be chased out of school because you're pregnant. But we have put that policy in place without, making enough research, if I'm to say so, because as I've been moving, we are doing like national exams. Students are getting promoted from senior 4 now to A-level, from A-level to university, promotional exams this term. But I found out that in every paper, most of the schools have been moving in, students were giving birth as they are writing their final exams in papers. And how do you expect like that student like to really concentrate and bring out good grades that are going to, to push her to the next level. Most students, actually, those students who are still at school, they are not sensitized. They are not ready to welcome the student who is pregnant, to give that supportive environment for her to process and, concentrate, do her papers. We find out most girls who get pregnant and stay at school, they are being traumatized. Like stigma is killing them. Most of them end up dropping out of school because of bullying, because of many things. So as maybe you press these policies in place, let us also sensitize these very students who are okay to create a supportive environment for these ones, because maybe they never wished for it to happen. Maybe it was a mistake, but they should attain education so that they could achieve their full potential, achieve their dreams. Because I don't believe pregnancy can prevent someone from achieving their dreams. But what mechanism have we put in place to see that they are given that conducive environment while at school?
Thank you. I don't believe pregnancy can prevent someone from achieving their dreams. That's a quote. Matesi. Julia.
I think that it's high time we sit on the same table with both religious and traditional leaders, because we got, for example, look at the policymakers in parliament, the different NGOs. We do whatever we do as different stakeholders, but yet when it gets to villages, most of these people actually hear more of their religious leaders and traditional leaders as opposed to everything else anyone says. So if we can pass laws and we do not get to work together with what the traditional leaders say, then I feel like our efforts are still going in vain, because as long as the traditional leader is still preaching the gospel of whatever norms are increasing child marriages and teenage pregnancies, or as long as we are not taking advantage of the big voice they have in these environments, then for me, I do not see the movement happening. So I think we need to collaborate more with religious and traditional leaders, because actually they be in these communities more than we be there, be it organizations or the government itself. But also on the side of the legal framework, I think, I don't know how it happened, but we are focused so much on passing the laws, but implementation is really, the gap is a big issue. Yeah. So I really think there needs to be, first of all, more awareness about the legal provisions concerning child marriage, or because like I mentioned, some of the people in our country are having their children victims to this practice, but they do not know that there's something that can actually be done to stop this. Or even young girls that are being forced into marriages, they do not know that either you can stand up for yourself, you have a law that protects you, something of the sort. And like Khadija said, the laws that are passed, and then yes, Khadija could have seen that maybe certain schools still accept children who are pregnant to continue with their school. But how many schools actually do that? Look at the Christian-based schools. They cannot, regardless of whatever the law says on paper, they will not, because either their Christian values, whatever they preach, do not accept that, or just their tradition will not accept that. So I think we need to put more effort on implementing and enforcing the law, but most importantly, creating more awareness. Because if the public is aware of how the law protects them, then we see them actually standing up for themselves, the victims, and also community members being a part of this. But in conclusion, I really believe education, like you mentioned, is really key. But most importantly, all of us working together, community members, different stakeholders sitting on the same table to put an end to this. Yeah.
Thank you very much. Very solid contribution. Mutesi.
Benjamin, let me add up something on what Julia submitted. These girls don't actually know that there is an alternative apart from her parents and also people who have come to marry her off. Like if we put that, I don't know, where they can go to in case someone is trying to forcibly marry you off, if these girls are informed about that, because when I was giving these girls like my contact, like my personal contact, you don't know how excited they are, or how excited when the police officer was giving them like the toll-free number, because we are using the police unit of the department that was moving with us was the Department of Family and Children Protection. So when these officers were actually giving their contacts to these students, everyone had to pull out the phone showing what is really happening at home, how excited they are writing down those numbers. Like Uganda, teenage pregnancy and early marriages, it's a big issue. If you see some reports, like 24% of youth, like our youthful population is getting destroyed because of teenage pregnancy and early marriages. And it is told that in 3 girls, like in rural areas, 3 girls, 1 is pregnant or 1 is married off. So to the extent that even some members of parliament had to stand and suggest this, I don't know that policy, but I was going to do whatever it would take to see that doesn't happen, standing in the house and moves a motion that every girl who is below the age of 15 or from 13 to something should be, given those contraceptives for them not to conceive. It shows how hopeless like we are as a country. Like we have run out of options. It's, they don't know the effects of these contraceptives in, these students are young. You can't just inject those, in their body. They have different effects. I was one person who was against that, but the deputy speaker of the parliament had to also oppose that. But it was a woman to stand on the floor of parliament and suggest that.
Yeah. Well, ladies, I'm going to invite you to make your closing remarks, but I'd also like you to make part of your closing remarks in your native language. I'll start with Julia.
I wasn't warned earlier, but Benjamin, this is a hard one. But I should go last. Let me first prepare.
Angela, you saw this coming, I'm sure.
We have to give the last remarks in our mother tongue. Okay.
Yes.
So for me, let me first say it in English, then go to my mother tongue. My last remarks and the message of hope to the girls in Uganda would be patience. Let us be patient with ourselves. Let us be patient with our parents. Let us be patient with God. Yes. And with that, we'll be able to understand ourselves, discover ourselves before anything goes out of hand, to know what is better for us. Because with time, as you grow, you make better decisions. You choose better friends and better spouses, I would say, instead of us, rushing into it, because most girls take it as a place of safety, marriage as a place of safety, or giving up their own, like a choice to carry their lives. They give up that to someone else. So I think it's patient that I would keep on. Be patient with yourself, be patient with God, and be patient with relatives. So in my mother tongue, obugumiikiriza. Beera mugumiikiriza nnyo eri bazadde bo, eri mukama wo, naawe kennyini. Yes, that is it.
Thank you, Angela. Who is next?
Hadija, stop bullying. Go, Hadija.
Oh my gosh, this is so hard, but let me try. The message I would give to my little sisters and little brothers out there is that you actually have a right to say no to teenage pregnancy and early marriages. You have a right to say no. You have that right. And also I call upon the government to actually sponsor these programs and projects that come up to, to create awareness in these remote areas in our countries. Because these very programs make these girls like inspired. We see most of our mentors be like, when I was in the village, so and so came in my village, and because that person came and talked about this and this, from that day it changed my life. So through the government sponsoring these projects, we actually impact these young girls' life. When I go to my local language, I would say that bawala bannange oyina olukusa olugaana okufumbiza amangu, oyina olukusa okugaana okufuna olubuto nga bukyali, oyina awantu wangi w'osobola okuripootinga, okusoma kwokka kwe kusobola okuleetera okuachivinga ebirooto byo. Mpita ne gavumenti okujja okusupportinga programs ezibuulirira abaana bano abawala engeri gye balina okwekwatamu in case nga bafunye ebizibu bino eby'okufumbirwa amangu lw'abazadde baabwe.
Beautiful. Beautiful. There is purpose behind me asking you to render your closing remarks in your native tongue, because we're promoting. We're saying English is not the elite language. Yes, so embrace the mother tongue, and I'm loving it. I can't understand it, but I'm loving it. And your people who will hear the recording will feel the validation of hearing their language. Yes? So go ahead, Julia.
Thank you, Benjamin. Mine is to the young girls out there: your dreams are valid, regardless of the challenges, the society stereotypes. Keep chasing them, and education is a passport. Yes, stay in school and stand up for not only yourself but each other. So, in my local language, we go. Njagala okukubiriza bawala bannange nti ebirooto byo bituufu, osobola okupasistinga n'obituukiriza, n'ekikulu mu byonna sigala mu ssomero osome, osobola okufuuka kyonna ky'oyagala okubeera. Ate mpita ne different stakeholders, gavumenti, ebitongole ebyenjawulo, tukwatire wamu ne abakulembeze b'omu byalo, tulabe nga preaching eno message mu byalo ebyenjawulo, tulabe nga abawala basigala mu ssomero ne basoma ne bamalako ate ne batuukiriza ebirooto byabwe.
Congrats, Julia.
Congratulations as well. Thank you, Benjamin, for this section. Is it done now?
Yes, we are at the end of the program. And again, I want to thank all of you ladies for not just coming on here, but the work that you do on the ground. You know, I believe that you are inspiring young women and men, not just in Uganda, but outside of your country. And I want to celebrate what you do and hope that others will feel motivated to play their part as well. So we've come to the end of the first episode of season 2 of the CSA Fireside. Thank you again. And to our listeners, see you on our next episode. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you,
Bye-bye.
Benjamin.
Bye.